So last week to me was another amazing week on the road, but it is great to be back in my box. Great to be back in Cali. Great to be back talking about the greatness of one Patrick Mahomes and the greatness of one Andrew Ryed, a.k.a. Andrew Reid, and the greatness of the Kansas City Chiefs. No surprise, it's nothing new. These dudes are not going anywhere either. It's the best player, the best coach, arguably, and the best team, inarguably, in the NFL. And they went out and they proved it again last night. Not the prettiest win ever. Certainly not the most dramatic win ever because of, well, the ending, which I will get to. But they don't hand out Lombardis for the prettiest win or the one that doesn't have the most dramatic ending. It's just about the last team standing. And the Chiefs were, once again, the last team standing, but only barely standing, because even the biggest Patrick Mahomes believers were holding their breath when dude limped into the halftime locker room. That high ankle sprain was re-aggravated. Philadelphia led by 10, and it should have been more. And they were looking essentially unstoppable at that point, especially on offense. Meanwhile, to that point, the KC defense could not get the hell off the field. Philly gave them a gift 7, and it had all the feelings and makings of a blowout. A tough spot for KC, tough spot for KC QB, and a tough spot for KC fan and for KC better. And most of all, a tough spot for me. I don't want to make it about me, but can I make it about me for a minute? It was a tough spot for me, not because I was on record as picking KC, but a tough spot for me because it had all the feelings of Chad Henne time. I was trying to figure out how the hell I could sit up here the Monday after the Super Bowl without a single take or thought on the second half, because there was no way in hell I was going to spend 1 second watching a Chad Henne game. Any Chad Henne game, much less a Chad Henne Super Bowl. But I should have known better. I should have remembered the miraculous healing powers of Patrick Mahomes. Should have remembered that the only thing more impressive than his ability to self-heal is his legendary toughness. I should have known, because that's one of the biggest reasons I did take the point and I did bet Kansas City before the game. And if you listen to Jim Rome's Big Head Bets, you would have known that the head, James Kelly, and I both took KC. Just saying. Then the big questions were, how much was that longer halftime going to jack with Patrick's ankle? And then how much tougher would it be for him to warm up and get loose with it? And then what kind of adjustment or adjustments were Andy Reid and Spags going to make, because they were all in danger of losing yet another Super Bowl. And that would have been bad. That would have stuck to them. That would have damaged legacies. That would have been a bad thing. They were in danger of losing another one until they weren't, because Mahomes and Andy Reid came out for the second half and reminded everybody exactly who they are. Once again, the best player in the game and arguably the best coach in the sport. 4 drives, 3 TDs, a game-winning field goal. There was only 1 KC incompletion in the entire second half. The hell happened to that vaunted Philadelphia defense? Philly could barely even slow the Chiefs down. Where was that vaunted, historic, iconic,
Ionic,
legendary Philly D-line last night? The one that we talked about all week long. The one that accounted for 70 sacks this season. 70! But not even one last night. So now, to me, would be a pretty good time to put some freaking respect on that KC offensive line, which was insulting how underappreciated that they were coming in and the way they played their asses off last night. It was one of the all-time great second-half performances in a Super Bowl. One of the all-time great second-half coaching masterclasses in Super Bowl history. And the Chiefs used that second half to straight up rip that game from Philly. Because for most of the game, Philly was exactly who we thought they were. The best team 2 through 53 in the league. And as far as QB1, aside from him gift-wrapping 7 to the Chiefs with that fumble, Jalen Hurts was playing his ass off too. Fact is, Philly was kicking KC's tail for much of the game. But, as my man Eric Wood, the former Buffalo Bills great, said, he said it this morning, quote, Eagles outplayed Chiefs for a majority of the game, but NFL games truly come down to 5 or 6 key plays, and Chiefs made them. End of quote. Freaking true dat. Starting with that Nick Bolton scoop and score. Hey, Chiefs fan, say what you want about this dude. And I know some of you have an issue with this dude, but he came up huge on the big stage for you last night, especially with that scoop and score. Listen, Jalen Hurts played an amazing game. He did. Jalen Hurts played an MVP caliber game. He did. But that fumble right there was an unforced disaster. And it could not have taken a more perfect bounce right into Bolton's hands, and it could not have been a more perfect break for the Chiefs or a more critical 7 in the end. Kansas City also got the longest punt return in Super Bowl history and very nearly the first punt return TD in Super Bowl history, and they got it at a perfect time from a perfect guy. I mean, none other than Kadarius Toney himself, of all people. Say what you want about him. ARF, enigmatic, never know. How about this guy putting up a tutty and a 65-yard punt return in that game? Essentially, they made that trade for specifically that last night. A 3rd and a 6th. A 3rd for the tutty, a 6th for the huge punt return. And what an unbelievable ROI on that deal. They made that trade for last night. And then they cashed that ticket. But the most surprising, most incredible, and most critical chunk play might have been the Mahomes scramble on that final possession. That one seemed impossible. But as we all know, Mahomes routinely makes the impossible look routine, and he did it again when he did this. That play right there says everything you need to know about that guy, about the dog that lives in that dude. You know, the jaded or bitter or Philly fan or Mahomes hater or somebody on the wrong side of the wrong bets might say, toughness? He pulled that toughness out of a needle. He hammered the spike. They tightened him up with something. Mahomes said, though, afterwards that he didn't take any painkillers. I don't know what he did or what he didn't do. I'm not saying he's not being truthful. I have no idea. I really don't know. I just know this. He showed the hell up like the all-time great that he is and had to be on one leg again. And he got it done again. I don't care how he did it. No one ever questioned this dude's greatness. But now you have to say he's every bit as tough as he is great. And that's saying a hell of a lot because, well, when you look at him, he's not the biggest guy. He's not the strongest guy. He's not the fastest guy. But he might be the toughest guy. That scramble, of course, set up the game-winning field goal. Well, the scramble and the holding call defensively on James Bradbury. And what did that do? That brought out all of the NFL is rigged people to enter their favorite conversation. This is the point where people start talking about the script. Yes, the holding call did kind of suck. I'll say that. It effectively ended the game right there, right? It ended the game in the sense that it ran the clock out on Philly. However, let's be really clear about this. That holding call was not why Philadelphia lost that game. It just wasn't. They lost that game because they came out of halftime with a 10-point lead and then got curb stomped by that KC offense the entire second half. That's why they lost. Not because of a really annoying and controversial holding call at the end of the game. A controversial, annoying holding call, but not an egregious holding call. And by the way, actually, maybe the right call. But don't take my word for it. listen to the guy who was flagged for the call. James Bradbury himself admitted it was the right call. I mean, wow, right? He just said it. It was a hold. I was hoping they'd let it go. I mean, hell, we all were hoping they would let it go. Nobody wanted that game to end with that also there, because it would have been the most incredible ending. And we didn't want anything taking away from an incredible game, especially the refs. And instead, you get one of the more anticlimactic endings ever. But do not blame that loss on that call, no matter how hard Philly fan is trying to do so this morning. If Philly fan wants to play some blame, there's a lot of blame to go around. Why don't you start with that vaunted defense for getting lit on fire in the second half? Why don't you start with that vaunted pass rush, which recorded exactly 0 sacks on a hobbled Mahomes in this game? Why don't you put some credit on the KC offensive line? Because it earned it. 0 credit to the overrated Eagles pass rush. As Chiefs left tackle Orlando Brown said afterwards, quote, 0 sacks. Put it on a bleeping T-shirt. .0. End of quote. He's right. Put that on a bleeping T-shirt. Put this on a bleeping T-shirt too. The Chiefs are not going anywhere. So y'all can quit asking Andy Reid about whether or not he's going to walk off on that and retire. I mean, of course. The hell would this guy go anywhere and do anything else for? He's not done. Why would he go? He's got the best player in the world in his prime. He's got a team that's set up to stay extremely competitive for years to come. They weren't supposed to do anything this year. And he's still putting on master classes in Super Bowls. Who would walk away from all of that? And he isn't, quote, waddling off into the sunset anytime soon. That's my childhood Terry Bradshaw who asked him, or say, come waddle over here. TB, that's rich, yo. My man, did you really tell somebody else to waddle? That was my idol, too. Come on, man. Anyway, last night was no swan song. Last night was just the latest reminder that it is still Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes and their world, and the rest of us are living in it, and the Chiefs are right there, and they're not going anywhere. You can put all of that on a bleeping T-shirt. It's the morning after. I'm assuming there's already a Chiefs World T-shirt. That wasn't a whole T-shirt, and a 0 sacks T-shirt. And if they don't all exist, first of all, I know they do. You know how I know? Ask my man, Rich in Copyright Hills. Trademarks be damned. That guy can whip up a T-shirt and rip a profit before the Chiefs can even make it back to KC. My man was probably already selling those shirts out of the back of his whatever he's driving before they even made it to their charter flight. Hell, before they even made it to the clubs. Hell, before they even made it to the locker room. Hell, before they even made it off the field. Rich in Copyright Hills was already dealing the merch out of the back of his car.